we've all seen them. Those butterflies that weirdly resemble moths. But how exactly are they different? And why have they been reviewed and shuffled between being butterflies and something in between? We're gonna find out now in episode 86 of Insects for Fun. So let's start with the basics. Skipper butterflies belong to the family Hesperidae, a sprawling clan boasting over 3,500 species worldwide. With their robust bodies and rapid flight, these little daredevils are true masters of the skies. In fact, it's how they got the common name skipper. Did you know that some skippers can reach flight speeds of 30 kilometers per hour? That's 20 miles per hour for my US listeners. And that's honestly incredible, given their small size. The name Hesperia refers to the Western Land, and their origins come from the neotropics of South and Central America. So I guess that's about as west as it gets, right? Anyway, here's the cool thing about these butterflies. They were originally thought to be something in between moths and butterflies, and were excluded entirely from the superfamily Papilionoidea. And if you didn't know, that's the superfamily that houses all the butterfly families in existence. The other superfamilies in the order Lepidoptera all belong to moths, because moths did come first, and there are many, many more of them than butterflies. So why were skippers excluded from the butterfly superfamily for so long? Well, for starters, they don't look like any other kind of butterfly. They don't really look like moths either. Their bodies are robust, and their wings barely look big enough to lift them. They're also much fuzzier than other butterflies, and their antennae usually don't form a club at the tip, but instead form a small hook. Skippers also have much larger eyes than normal butterflies and rarely ever fold their wings in entirely. I almost always see them with their wings half cocked and spread out, like they're ready to take off at any second. Aside from how they look though, these strange insects have very erratic flight patterns, which I mentioned earlier, and are unlike traditional butterflies that flutter with precision. Skipper butterflies are also often more on the drab side or sport fall colors like orange, brown, and dirty yellow. There's one species called the Western Blue Policeman, which is an iridescent teal with a black body and red head. This is one of the only species that has iridescent coloring though, and can be found only in Africa. Another really cool moth-like fact about these is that the caterpillars form silken cocoons within leaves. Of course, all that being said, these butterflies are daytime flyers, and they also don't have their wings coupled, which is a common trait found in all moths. I mentioned this in a previous episode, but moths have their wings connected through a small hook-like structure. This keeps their wings flapping in unison, and is proof that they're more primitive than butterflies. But let's put their differences in taxonomics aside and look at their life cycles. Skippers usually mate when the weather is good, following a more opportunistic mating schedule. In temperate regions, this begins in early summer, and in tropical places, this usually coincides with rainfall. Skipper butterflies either lay their eggs singly or in groups depending on the species, and some can complete an entire life cycle within a matter of weeks, pending the weather and climate, while others take months. They're known for being pretty fast though, and speed just seems to be the name of their game, because even the mating is described as being short and sweet. There's really no special romance rituals involved with these other than males trying to get the attention of females by fluttering around. This kind of flashy show isn't all they have going for them though. Many male skipper butterflies are known to have dark markings on their wings, which they use to release pheromones. These dark marks, called stigmata, are raised patches of specialized scales called androconia. Again, not all male skippers have this unique adaptation, but many of them do, especially in the genus Hesperia, which are commonly known as branded skippers, specifically for these dark pheromone scale brands. The tactic here is to release pheromones while flying closely and around a female, sometimes even physically rubbing the androconia scales off on the female's body or antennae. Skipper eggs are generally quite small, and the caterpillars don't get very large either. But there is one large thing about them, and that would be their heads. The caterpillars have strangely bulbous heads when compared to the rest of their body. Well, for most of them anyway. But even if their head isn't oddly large, they generally have a noticeable bottleneck that makes their head look like the end of a joint on a Bionicle or other Lego socket. Spherical, out of place, and kind of strange when looking at the whole picture. The two largest subfamilies for skippers are grass skippers and spread wing skippers. The names aren't very imaginative, so you can already guess how they got them. But then the question is, do grass skippers not spread their wings too? Grass skippers are a group of 2,000 or more that rest with their wings in a jet plane or X-wing formation for the Star Wars fans, and they're the largest group of these butterflies. They feed on many types of grasses, and the skippers tend to be more autumn-colored, with the adults feeding on nectar from a variety of flowering plants. They really aren't that picky, and can be found zooming around in gardens that feature a variety of pretty flowers like cosmos, butterfly bushes, zinnias, urbanas, etc. Spread wing skippers, as the name suggests, rest with their wings entirely spread out, and there's less than 1,000 species recorded. One source I found online said they feed on dung and carrion as adults, but turns out that's not actually true. It's actually a small subset of grass skippers known as duskwings, which have been documented to do this as part of their mud puddling behavior. Hopefully you remember, but mud puddling refers to the act of butterflies congregating around sources of salt ions to collect them for producing nuptial gifts. Before we finish this episode, there was one really interesting topic I wanted to cover though, and that would be the phenomenon of cryptic species complexes. This essentially means that a group of distinct species are so closely mimicked that it's virtually impossible to tell the difference without looking at other factors, such as range, food, and mating habits. And it just so happens that a skipper butterfly commonly called the two-barred flasher fits the description. Telegonus fulgurator is a species found all over the Americas from southern US down into northern Argentina, and it was long believed to only be one, until a study in 2004 claimed that it's actually a group of 10. Their conclusions were drawn from the difference in host plant preferences along with differences in caterpillar phenology, also known as how they look. The study was compelling and used DNA to back its claims, but the problem was that a lot of the DNA came from old museum specimens and the work at the time didn't really hold up. A reanalysis seems to suggest that only 3 could be considered individual species, while the remaining 7 are more likely to be species morphs or subspecies. The exact verdict is still yet to be published, however, so who knows. But that's gonna do it for today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it and have new appreciation for skipper butterflies. Make sure to follow the socials and rate this podcast on whatever platform you listen. Leaving a review on Apple would be incredibly helpful as well. Now, if you want ad-free episodes, bonus episodes like the one recently released on the main feed, or you just want to help support the show monetarily, then head on over to patreon.com and find Insects for Fun. Thanks again for listening.